For most of our lives, we've heard one thing about salt, right? Less is more. It's been hammered home by doctors, public health campaigns, you see it on food packages. It's probably one of the most deep-seated pieces of health advice out there. And it's been such a simple, clear message, and so incredibly consistent. It doesn't matter if you have high blood pressure or if you're perfectly healthy, the mantra has always been to slash your sodium.
And look, there's a good reason for it. This advice is backed by some seriously compelling data. I mean, look at these numbers. A 23% drop in stroke risk, a 17% drop in cardiovascular disease, that's huge. This is the kind of evidence that has shaped dietary guidelines for decades. But what if that's not the whole story?
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting and, frankly, a little weird. Because while the dangers of high salt intake are totally proven, there's this growing mountain of research that points to a surprising and pretty concerning flip side. It turns out going too low with your salt might actually send you right back into the danger zone.
So, before we dive into that low-salt paradox, let's just make sure we're on the same page. Let's cover the ground we all know. The case against eating too much salt is rock solid, and it's really important to understand why. So here's the deal with high sodium. It basically puts your entire cardiovascular system under a ton of strain. It's tied to higher blood pressure, which, over time, damages your blood vessels and makes your heart work way harder than it should have to. The big studies are super clear on this. More salt equals more risk for heart disease, hypertension, and stroke. Yeah, there's really no debate on that front. All right, now let's flip the coin. Let's look at the other side of the story. What happens when your body senses it's not getting enough sodium? Well, it doesn't just relax and go with the flow. It hits a big red panic button. And if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, this makes perfect sense, right? For most of human history, salt wasn't in a shaker on every table. It was a scarce and absolutely vital nutrient. So your body developed this incredibly sophisticated, non-negotiable system to hang on to every last bit of it. It basically treats low sodium as a direct threat to your survival.
So what you're seeing here is that emergency response in action. It's called the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, or RAAS for short. When your kidneys get the signal that sodium is running low, they kick things off by releasing renin. This starts a chain reaction that ends with your blood vessels literally constricting and your body desperately holding on to salt and water. It works for sure, but it's a really stressful survival mechanism. The bottom line is, when you drastically cut your salt, you're basically forcing your body into a constant state of emergency.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. We can actually measure this stuff. This table shows you exactly what happens when you're chronically low on salt. You see those alarm bells of the RAS system, renin and aldosterone? They go way up. But here's the kicker. Look what else goes up. Your stress hormones, like noradrenaline, shoot up. And, get this, so do your total cholesterol and triglycerides. Your body is in full-on metabolic stress mode.
So what are the unintended consequences of having this alarm system blaring all the time? Well, they're pretty significant. You're not just looking at hormonal changes. We're talking a higher resting heart rate, your insulin resistance can get worse, and your blood can even get thicker as your body tries to conserve volume. And all of those things are well-known risk factors for heart disease, the very thing these diets are supposed to prevent.
Okay, so we know that consistently low sodium puts the body under stress. But what happens when things get really low, like critically low? That's when we cross over from a state of stress into a very real, very dangerous medical condition.
It's a condition called hyponatremia. See, sodium is this crucial electrolyte that maintains the fluid balance inside and outside of your cells. When your blood sodium levels get too diluted, water rushes into your cells, causing them to swell up. And that is especially dangerous for your brain cells because, well, they're stuck inside your skull with nowhere to go.
And the symptoms can escalate fast. What starts off feeling like just fatigue or a headache can quickly morph into muscle cramps, confusion, and trouble walking. And in the most severe cases, when those sodium levels really plummet, that swelling in the brain can lead to seizures, a coma, and yeah, it can even be fatal. And look, this isn't some rare theoretical risk. Certain groups are way more vulnerable. We're talking about older adults, especially if they're not eating well, endurance athletes who sweat buckets and then drink tons of plain water, and of course, people with certain medical conditions like heart failure, or who are on specific medications like diuretics. They're all at a much higher risk. Let me give you two totally different real-world examples to show you how this can happen. On one end, you have what's sometimes called tea and toast syndrome. This often happens in elderly people who just aren't eating much besides, well, tea and toast, not enough salt or protein.
Their kidneys just don't have the materials needed to make urine properly, so they hold on to water and dilute their sodium. Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you've got a marathon runner. They're losing tons of salt through sweat while chugging plain water. Two completely different paths that lead to the exact same dangerous destination, hyponatremia.
So, where does that leave us? We've got the dangers of too much salt on one hand and the dangers of too little on the other. How do we make sense of this? Well, the answer is to stop thinking about it as a straight line and instead to embrace a much cooler, more nuanced idea.
That simple idea that less is always better well, it doesn't quite fit all the evidence. The real relationship between how much salt you eat and your health isn't a straight line at all. It's way more interesting than that, as you're about to see.
And here it is. This is what's known as the J-shaped curve, and it really tells the whole story perfectly. Look at the far right. High salt intake, and yep, mortality risk is higher. That's the part we've all heard. But now look at the far left. As your sodium intake drops to really low levels, we're talking below 2.3 grams a day, that risk of dying goes right back up. The sweet spot, the very bottom of that J, where the risk is the lowest, is actually in this moderate range, around 3 to 5 grams a day for most of us.
I love this quote from the research because it just nails it. Instead of this frantic race to the bottom, the real goal should be to find a moderate middle path, to avoid the extremes on either side. It's not about trying to eliminate an essential nutrient, but about finding a healthy balance that keeps your body out of both of those danger zones.
Which leaves us with one final big question to think about. For decades, the entire conversation about salt has been dominated by one word, reduction. But maybe, just maybe, the science is telling us it's time to change the conversation. Maybe the question we should all be asking isn't just how low can I get my salt intake, but rather, what's the right balance for me?